Hello earth seekers and nature lovers, welcome to Miskayani. I am Karen Weinman, a Pampamesayoq an Andean shaman trained by the Keros high in the Andes mountains of Peru. And today we're going to talk about Pachamama. And it just amazes me that no matter where I go in the world, really no matter where I go, if I use the word Pachamama, people know it. How is that possible? It's a mystery I can't answer, because Pachamama is a Quechua word, and it is infiltrated into our language as Westerners, and we don't even know it. Of course, we do know the earth, right? And so, we think of Pachamama, we think of the earth. There is a connection. So, as I go into this topic, if it's something that really interests you, and you want to learn more, thank you for joining me on this video. And if you want to subscribe, you'll get notifications when I send out new ones around all these amazingly fascinating topics. So most of us know that, if we go out into nature and go for a walk, right? We go for a hike, we walk through a forest, we walk through deserted open desert plains, if we engage with the night sky, with the trees, or walk along the beach, we know that we'll feel better afterwards. And we don't really know why. It's something we've forgotten. It's something that our Western culture has become out of touch with. And there are many steps that happen in between the walking on and looking at that builds relationship, that we can engage with nature and we can communicate with nature and build very rich relationships. And somehow I think it's deeply innate in us that we know that we need to connect with the earth, but we don't know how. We've forgotten how to do this. And this is the gift that Pachamama brings us. So, the generations before us, if we go back hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, indigenous tribes knew this, all right? Working with the earth was central to their practices, to their way of living, to life. And of course, as we've evolved as human beings and gone into this industrial age and expanded our minds and built the digital age, slowly but surely we've somehow taught ourselves that our minds, our brains and our egos dominate, and that we can control each other, control our world, control nature. And little by little we've got more and more and more in our head spaces and in our egos, and forgotten these other parts of us. And so it's interesting that we know there's a connection with the earth deep inside. I think every one of us knows that. We just either don't act on it, we are not conscious of it, or we have no idea where to start with it. And the Incas and the Keros, they have known for hundreds and hundreds of, if not thousands of years, that a great time of change would come when Western civilization would need to wake up. And Western civilization would need these old ancient tools, these old practices of remembering our place on the earth, of remembering how to engage with her. And so they went up into the mountains and held this sacred practice, waiting for the signs, which started to happen in the last 2012, maybe even before that, the last 20-30 years, as the glaciers in Peru started to melt away, as earthquakes started to get more frequent, and the Keros started to see all these changes in nature, in bird life. They had many signs that they knew it was now time, and they needed to come down and start sharing this ancient knowledge with us. And then of course at the same time there are those of us who are called to the path. All right, so for me, I was struck by lightning. There are all kinds of ways that shamans get called very loudly to this path, so without a doubt that you are being called to it, and you have a choice. yeah, called to, well, especially for me as a Pampamesayoq, the Pachamama is central to my whole practice. And so building a relationship with her was something that started to unfold after I was struck by lightning. It took a while. It wasn't, it birthed itself through the light that came into my body. But so it unfolded, and I hear like she has a voice and she has a language and she has an incredible, incredible power that we are missing out on as Westerners, that we just didn't know about. And so, of course, I get struck, and then I'm called to Peru, and when I get there, the Keros are like, okay, here's the next shaman from the West that needs to take this home. And so the knowledge gets passed on. So what would you say if I told you that nature is not about just walking on it or looking at it or seeing the beauty with our physical eyes? What happens if I told you there was much, much more to this, much, much more? That there was a way that we could, with specific practices, engage to communicate, that there were ways to rejuvenate ourselves, to rejuvenate and build a relationship with Pachamama. Now, as a Pampamesayoq, I have it's my commitment to build that relationship and honor Pachamama. All right, for all of us, it's about remembering, because it takes us home to who we truly are. And so slowly, 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 we have to begin to awaken this, and so hence the Pachamama workshop that I run, to start sharing, because although it is my speciality, it is for each person to build their own relationship with Pachamama. And this isn't a set of steps. Like if you practice 1, 2, and 3, then you'll get this, right? It doesn't work like that. You've got to learn the practices. It's like learning a new language. You've got to learn it and put it to practice and see where you stumble and fall and where you need vocabulary, and to have someone to guide you through that. And so it's not written down. It's something that has to be experienced, and it is something that has to be embodied. So what we do on the Pachamama workshop, for example, is that you learn all kinds of practices that, well, let me just come back to that. You learn all kinds of practices, and as you start to work with them, you start to open this door. You start to get to know Pachamama in your way. You start to engage in this language and find your way and have guidance as you travel this journey. And the Pachamama workshop is just the beginning. Those practices are for life. That's not a marketing thing. It's something you will use for the rest of your life. And regardless of whatever happens in the future, you have those tools and you have your relationship with Pachamama. And so as you practice them, you begin to know what Pachamama is and what it looks like in your life and what it feels like and the sensation. It opens up your senses. It helps us to release the heaviness that we carry as Westerners. It helps to rejuvenate our life force. Yes, we start to notice that we have more and more and more energy to do what we want to do. And when we have more life force, it means we can attract more. So we become more magnetic and abundance starts to open up. But there is something else that happens, and I've never been able to put this into words, but it is very, very real. And that is that things start to manifest. How can I explain this? Opportunities arrive. I had a participant who was offered a job when he wasn't even looking, all right? And it was the perfect job and not an arena he ever thought of. But he'd been telling Pachamama how unhappy he was. And she heard him. And suddenly this offer came. This is what I mean. And sometimes we don't even have to ask. She's like the great mother. She knows what her children need. And so these practices open doors. They're beyond our cognizant understanding sometimes. Mind doesn't get it. But it is a new language that we learn. And in a way it's new because we don't know it, we didn't inherit it, we don't know where it comes from, but at the same time it's incredibly, incredibly ancient. And so a lot of people would tell me how it opens their hearts, or that they just know this. How do they just know this? And it's because it is incredibly ancient and incredibly innate and buried in us. And so as we go on this journey getting to know Pachamama, we wake this up together and we support each other to begin to find our way. So if your heart calls you to this beautiful, beautiful nature being called Earth, that you want to go beyond the walking on and the looking at, and you want to engage and build and discover the most incredibly powerful and loving and compassionate and supportive relationship, then please come and join me on the Pachamama workshop. There are other ways to get to know her, but as you can tell by the title, it's a module that I put together. It's only 7 weeks to begin people on this journey of unfolding and learning this new language and discovering them. It really is about coming home. And the earth is waiting for us. Pachamama is waiting for us. I hope that has answered some questions. If you have any more, please put them in the comments below and I will come back to you. Subscribe to this channel if this topic fascinates you or if you want to know more. Later on I'll start going into the various sites, the power places in Peru, where we can connect with Pachamama. So I look forward to hearing from you. Bye for now.